I am definitely more of a validator node guy, especially with this ETH merge happening. But yeah, that definitely validator node guy.
Yeah, same here. Absolutely. I'm on validators all day.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question because I think you're kind of splitting security and obviously ease of consumption, right? I don't really know which way the regulators are going to go. Ideally, you want like I think a lot of the regulators are going to go and either like allow maybe one or two sort of proof of work type chains that are more settlement layers just for security for those who are like extreme maxis that way. But I think the validator node is what's going to basically allow the scalability, right? So it depends on what you're looking for, but I think validator nodes are definitely the future with people who really care about the decentralization and whatnot. Maybe building a little bit on kind of the very secure proof of work type networks. Um, but yeah, I think like if you're looking for the commercial opportunity, it's probably the validator side.
All right, yeah. I would agree with you. I like validator nodes. Mining is a little tough to get into, but I've heard from people and I've seen firsthand that it can be pretty lucrative too. So definitely interesting takes. Would you rather have one really close friend or five somewhat close friends?
Um, I guess, are you guys making me go first every time? What the
Yeah.
fuck?
You're the very left one on my screen, so yeah.
What?
You're the very left one on my screen, so.
Okay, fine. Yeah, this is the weird because R is usually not first, right? But you guys, okay. My I probably would do one really close friend. I think that's kind of like my approach, like in real life. So that's
All
what I
right,
usually,
all
how I
right.
usually lean.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go with five friends to spread the load in case it all goes wrong.
Diversify.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Yeah, I'll probably go with five. I mean, like, I'm sure you can get five like close friends. That's the ideal. I feel like, but obviously, if I had to pick one or the other, probably go with five. Also,
Okay. Yeah, the polls channel is actually open to the community, so people can vote. So it's definitely interesting to see the dynamic with what people choose versus what the guys on stage choose too. So most people have said the one really close friend. We have one vote for the five somewhat close friends and seven for the one really close friend. That's interesting. And this one's 50-50 split. Bitcoin or Ethereum?
ETH all the way.
Yeah, ETH,
It's not even close.
ETH. Yeah.
ETH, ETH, definitely.
Okay. Any particular reason?
I mean, I think Bitcoin is the most important like asset for the reason why that crypto as a space is like successful. But I think ETH is just kind of like the future of it. But I acknowledge that without the Bitcoin Foundation, nothing would be possible. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so that's fine.
All right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Pancakes or waffles?
Mm. Are we talking like Belgian waffles or what?
Yeah, and we can be talking about any type of waffle. The
I
best
think
waffle ever or the best pancake ever?
oh, okay. I think it's definitely the best waffle ever. Like pancakes, I think on average are better, right? But I think the best waffle would be better than the best pancake.
Okay.
I'm going to being UK based for me having American pancakes is quite novel. So when I go to America and I work in America, it really stands out for me to having pancakes. I'm going pancakes.
Interesting.
Um, I probably go pancakes too. I just haven't had a waffle in so long. I feel like all brunch spots I go to have like pancake. You still have waffles. I just had chicken and waffles the other day, actually. Maybe
Chicken waffles?
chicken and waffles.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's like Yeah.
Do
I'll
you know?
try
Have you
that.
never had that before?
I have not had that before.
It's pretty good. It's definitely a southern thing. But
Yeah, it's a southern thing.
Okay.
it's good.
Yeah, I flew to Baltimore about 3 years ago, and that was presented to me, and it blew my mind that was a thing. So I had to have it, and I did really enjoy it, actually, chicken and waffles. So, but you don't have that in the UK, that's for sure.
All right, real estate or stocks?
I'm actually in investment banking for equities, equity capital markets. So I'm definitely a stock guy.
All right.
I'm a real estate guy, so I own several properties, commercial properties, warehouses, corner stores, apartments. So that's my thing in real life. So that's definitely my way.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
I'm probably more of a stock person. I mean, I think it depends on like what your strategy is, but I think generally stocks are easier to return more money on than real estate. But I think it just depends on your strategy.
Depends if you buy GameStop or not.
Yeah.
Did you buy GameStop?
I did not buy GameStop.
Oh, damn.
But yeah, I missed the boat on GameStop, but I didn't see a fundamental reason to buy it, so I guess that's why I didn't.
I think that is a fair thing to come to the conclusion of. I actually did buy GameStop. I bought GameStop like as a fucking joke when it was like $40, and it jumped up to like $300, and I put like $1,000 in, so I was pretty happy with that.
It's a good day.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
No complaints there. But yeah,
All right. Would you rather go on a cruise or stay at a resort on a beach?
I feel like I'm not much of like a cruise guy, but I'm also not much of. I think I'd do the cruise.
Okay. Because a cruise, you could go anywhere in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never actually been on a cruise, but the thought of being trapped in one place and not being able to escape annoying people, if they were annoying, makes me feel a bit tense just thinking about it. But as I haven't done it, I should probably choose that and throw caution to the wind. Go for it. Go
All
cruising.
right.
We're cruising.
I'd probably go for the resort personally. I've been on a few cruises, and I think depending on the place you go to resort to, I think because I think you can just go to like I don't know, like if you're in Central America, you can go to a rainforest, versus so yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I've been on one cruise and I'd rate it like a 6 out of 10. It was pretty good, but I think there's better options out there. It was up to Alaska, so it was a little chilly, just like hanging out on the boat. So maybe that played a part of it, but
Alaska's sick though.
it is. It was super cool. But when you're in the middle of the ocean, you don't actually get to see Alaska, then it's not as cool.
That makes sense.
All right, so the last three questions, I'll just ask one of you guys each, so we can speed it up a little bit because I want to get into talking about Mythic X too, not just random questions, but these are fun. These are definitely fun. So, is it Rick or RYK? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Rick, RY, whatever.
All right, this one's to you. Would you rather only be able to read or only be able to listen?
Read or listen?
Yes.
Hmm.
As a way of consuming
I couldn't.
information.
Yeah. Probably listen.
Okay.
Yeah, probably listen.
I'm right there with you. I usually listen to like podcasts or audiobooks, at least at some point during the day. So definitely like to listen. All right, Swedwin, Polygon or Avalanche?
Damn, that's a good one. So I've
There is
actually
answer for this question.
Yeah. No, I've actually just flipped my answer in the last sort of, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks. My opinions completely changed. I was a real Avalanche guy. I was really into Avax. Had so many DeFi investments on the Avalanche chain, and it was a blockchain that I'd spent all my time on. But I'm now a Polygon guy through and through, because there's so much being built on Polygon. It's phenomenal. The partnerships, the announcements, and I know some of those could be PR stunts. They may not come to fruition, but even so, they're building, and they're going to be absolutely huge in the next bull run. So that's my biggest bag right now. Polygon Matic. It is the way forwards. And as it so happens, we are Mythic X. We are building on Polygon.
All right, I like it. Yeah, Polygon is definitely my pick out of the two as well. We are also building on Polygon too. I think they have a lot of stuff, a lot of good things going for them. Especially like the partnerships that they're getting now is super impressive. I think they've gotten like a dozen like super big names just in the last couple of months. So definitely exciting times.
And the fact they're happy just to announce these during a bear market really says something about their ambition. You know, they're not holding this alpha until they feel like they're going to get the most value out of it during a bull run. They're just dropping it now and carrying on and still building and growing. So yeah, it's an amazing chain.
Yeah. Last question for you, Battle Ace. Would you rather always be traveling or never be able to travel again?
Probably always be traveling. I don't know. That seems kind of hard. I mean, depends on like what that means, right? Is that every 3 months, or is that like I'm going to like a different thing every day? Because I don't really want that one.
You a big consulting guy?
I don't know. Even they get 4 days at least a week in one place.
That's fair enough. I suppose I should probably specify that question. But no, that's a good answer. Definitely makes sense. But yeah, with that, would you guys like to get into a little bit about what Mythic X is doing, and a little bit about yourselves as well, and the roles that you play on the team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll start. We'll go down the list, and then we'll come back, and then maybe we can introduce the protocol a little bit. But so I'm Rick, or Ryan, or Rye, whatever you want to call me. It's totally fine. I am kind of one of the founders of the protocol, and one of the people who really came up with like the nitty gritty on how the tokenomics work, because that's kind of like my area of expertise. I think I serve the role of this like pretty interestingly, because as I mentioned before, I come from an investment banking background, so I look at cap structures all day, and I focus on equities. So, looking at tokenomics is very much a similar vein. And yeah, I've done probably upwards of $20 billion in transactions in the last 2 years. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, my name's Swedwin, or Pyro Ed. In the real world, I'm known as Pyro Ed because I'm a pyrotechnician. I have been ever since I started working. Officially a paid arsonist. But I'm the community manager at Mythic X. I'm actually one of the newest members of the team. So I discovered Mythic X as a investor initially, when they were building up to the pre-sale for the land NFTs, and then I ended up joining the team because I really fell in love with the protocol and got really inspired by it. And here I am now, the community manager. So.
Yeah, and I guess my background is kind of similar to Ryan's. I come from the private equity world, worked at a bunch of different PE type shops. Since like for the past almost 8-9 years now, and currently work at a 50 billion plus asset manager. That's, I think you'd recognize, a lot of people recognize the name if I said it, but I think in terms of crypto, just similar to Ryan, I've sort of been helping to build the tokenomics and sort of how the sustainability and things like that of the protocol would work upon launch, along with sort of just helping to, I think, do some of the writing in terms of medium and communication around the tokenomics side for the community. So yeah, and also obviously stuff like these AMAs and things.
Got it. Yeah, those roles are all definitely very crucial to building up a strong team. So it's good to hear. And now, if you guys want to give us about a 10,000-foot overview of what Mythic X is, and then we can kind of dive into the nitty gritty of things from there.
Yeah, so at its heart, Mythic X started as a pure play DeFi protocol. So think something like we were kind of inspired by what Tomb was doing when Tomb was relevant, and something like what some of these node projects were doing, and the list kind of goes on of the kind of inspirations we have. But any major DeFi protocol that you could like think of, like that's kind of where we gained a lot of our inspiration. Um, the main thing for us was like the problem is that these projects kind of are more or less just pump and dump schemes by the time that they actually like get to fruition, because they're not able to create any sort of sustainability other than the fact of like people greedily holding onto their bags, right? Like that's the only thing keeping the price tethered down. So we kind of looked at a way to kind of fix that from a DeFi sense, and then we're inspired by what DeFi Kingdoms was doing, another another interesting project, but inspired by what they were doing, and then really added some of these GameFi elements to it. So that's kind of more or less like the gist of it. I'm sure Battle and Spudwin can give a little more, but that's the high level overview.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, if you want to dive into a little bit more of the game mechanics and how that kind of plays into the whole tokenomics, I'm definitely curious to hear how that works.
Yeah, Battle, do you want to start and then we can fill it in?
Yeah, just so we're talking about the game mechanics of the tokenomics.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we saw some pretty interesting things in the last sort of DeFi bull run come up, right? In terms of like the things like DeFi Kingdoms and other types of projects like that, where even though it was quite literally a DeFi project, right? All that was happening in DeFi Kingdoms was that you would stake um, to return something. It was pretty basic, honestly. And they had character, and they basically gamified the whole process, right? Around having these 2D pixel arts and having these different characters that are kind of roaming around in Crystal Vale or wherever, right? Or around Harmony. And just kind of that gamification basically led to a huge amount of interest, right? Because it is in a way like you're basically gamifying. When you gamify something, you make people want to play more of it. It seems more of a game than work, right? And so, and it's more fun for people. And so that's sort of like what we try to do here as one aspect of the game mechanics, where we make it seem like a game, but it all functions to help the protocol. And so how I'd probably describe it is that we have, I mean, I guess like taking a step back, right? Like we are trying to create this utility token for Matic, which we think, as mentioned, is a very, very bullish layer two, and has like a great future in front of it. So we're trying to create kind of a token that's pegged to Matic, and then being able to use that token for the Matic ecosystem for other protocols, kind of in a bigger sense. So you basically have this tag token, you hold it as a store of value across the ecosystem of Matic projects, and that sort of frees up the Matic token for validation or for other things rather than being the store of value. And the way that we achieve that is through utilizing some of the things that came before it, from call it things like inspirations like the nodes, like Tomb. We mentioned DeFi Kingdoms and things like that, but gamifying it all so that our community, like when people come in to play this, to invest or put money into this, like they feel like they're playing a game, but they're actually helping to achieve these final goals, right? Where you create this stable token that is pegged to Matic, and then you can basically sell that to other to Matic people who want to hold Matic as a store of value, right? or hold it in their treasuries or do whatever with it. And so the
And
way that we go across this is this idea of quests, of staking quests. And what these staking quests do is that you basically put put in you basically you basically like get our myth token. So there's going to be a Genesis pool where you are able to basically get our myth token. There's 3 tokens. There's fortune, there's myth, and then there's bonded myth. But we won't talk about that part. But for now, basically like you earn fortune when you stake myth in our protocol, and the myth token is kind of the key token here. It's sort of like the governance token. You get the myth token, and you also get your own character, right? So your character is going on a quest. To go on a quest, you must take myth token, and you have basically a 5-day period to start, where you basically stake for 5 days. You get some sort of an APR, and that APR is paid out in our fortune token, and then the fortune token is the one that's pegged to Mythic. And basically, like as your character is staking, you're basically going on this quest for 5 days. But every 5 days, the gamification element comes here. You earn your fortune test, but you get injured when you're going on the quest to slay a dragon or whatever it is. And so there are 3 stats that every staker has in their sort of character, and those stats are stamina, durability, and health. Basically, you can think of it as like if you remember those OG RPG games where like you have those 3 stats and they would go down, like you start with 10 stats and then like it might go down to, or you start with 5 stats here, it goes down to 4 stats after a quest, 3 stats after a second quest, 2 stats after the third quest, right? So every time you quest, it goes down. And you basically have to heal your character to be able to continue to go on quests, because each time you complete a quest, your stat goes down by 1 on each of them, and that impacts the APR return that you're getting. So let's say, as an example, you're getting, I don't know, like 20% or 10% over the 5 days, right? As a return. If you have like one less, I don't have like the actual ones right in front of me, but basically, like if you have one less, say, health, right, your APR might go down by like 10% or something. We have the final. I'm just using it as round numbers, for example, right? Or when your stamina goes down, then the number of days, right, might go up for you to complete the quest because it takes you longer. So like instead of 5 days, it takes 6 days, right? And what that means effectively is that your APR is getting cut by 1/5, right? So you're cutting it down. And then I think there's one other one as well, like something like mine. I don't know if Ryan, you remember it, but
time extension.
that's what I just said.
Oh wait, oh sorry.
Yeah, health, armor, and stamina. So,
Sorry, yeah, armor, stamina. But the third one, I think the modifier was
it's like likelihood to fail, and
yeah, sorry, likelihood to fail, right? So when you have 5 of this stat, you basically have 100% chance of completion. Each time it goes down by 5% to the minimum of 75% chance of completion. And basically, what that means, again, that's a negative modifier, right? You have a 75% chance of completing the quest, 25% chance of failing, right? At the lowest, when you have the lowest bar of that. And again, that's an APR modifier, right? So these 3 different stats that you modify your APR, and that you kind of choose your own adventure on how you want to do, because like we have this other mechanism where you as an adventurer get to heal your stats. And so what we mean by that is you can basically like we have these 3 land NFTs. So the temple, there's the tavern, the blacksmith, the temple. Each one corresponds to one of those 3 stats. And basically, these land NFTs, the adventurers have to go to the tavern to heal, whatever, and they pay a fee. You have to pay a fee to get your stats back up to max to be able to get the highest possible APR. And the fee you pay goes to the protocol, but you're paying it to the NFT holders. So you're paying the fee to the landholders in the fortune token. And we have kind of a schedule of fees as far as like how that works. And basically, it's kind of like this cycle where you basically, as an adventurer, you're basically paying fortune to the protocol, right? But also kind of going on these quests and choosing your own adventures as far as like how much kind of return you want, how comfortable you are with each of the modifiers, right, and each quest in terms of getting the APR, the fortune that you want. So I know I said a lot there. I'll just point out like one or two other things about this that are kind of unique. We think so. Number one, like we talked about these land NFTs, right? We did a tavern sale. We have two other tiers of land that we're going to release probably after launch that we're going to have some available. But basically, like it's very advantageous to own these NFTs because like you get an airdrop of the fortune fees along with an APR on top of it. So like a tavern, I think, is like a 200% APR. It's the only way to directly print fortune outside of kind of staking the myth, but you get that APR. So think of it kind of as a very, very limited node is what it was, inspired by nodes, right? But rather than having like unlimited number of nodes that keep printing an unlimited amount of stuff, we only have like a few hundred total these kind of land NFTs that are getting paid fees and also generating income in terms of fortune for the holders of that NFT. The interesting thing here too is that when people pay fees, right, that's a little bit of a burn.
Oh, looks like we lost him.
It's essentially these ways that we can kind of mitigate. We can reduce incoming printing of the myth token, which helps sustainability, but in a fun way where you get to choose how much you want to impact it. We're never gonna make it like obvious what's the best method to kind of interact with this protocol, right? So a lot of what the gamification element comes in is how can our users kind of take advantage of specific rates and if they're very risk averse, maybe it makes sense for them to always want to max out the healing, right? Because or the likelihood to fail because they don't want to fail. Like they are more worried about not failing than potentially like seeing a higher return by tanking that initial whatever. So the idea behind this is that we're allowing users to inadvertently decide how much return they want by what makes them comfortable. So for us, it's all about user agency and giving people the opportunity to decide like Battle just said, like how they want to play the game rather than you're being forced to do it this way or another way. So all of these kind of ideas were inspired by like what Battle was saying, where it's like, okay, this is kind of very, very similar to a DeFi Kingdoms type element. This is similar to like a node type project, or the list kind of goes on in where the inspirations kind of come from. But that's more or less like the idea behind it, where it's like we're trying to make an inadvertent way to generate fees and increase burn mechanics more fun. And then the last thing I'll say is that if we can successfully do that, what we'll do is we'll create this like very, very stable type coin. And Battle kind of mentioned that it's a peg thematic, and that's true, but it's more, we think of it more of a soft peg, where by that we mean, though it is a peg thematic for sure, it's for us more of a like the Matic price is like the lower bound. We don't expect to hover over Matic. We're not going to be printing to kind of get close to that Matic price, right? This is not like Tomb in that sense. It's very, very different. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear. But
Got it.
Yeah, sorry, I dropped out.
Oh, it's all good. Your teammate got your back. He just picked up right where you dropped off. So no, that was good. Always a good thing to have to know that your teammates got your back. Yeah, welcome to the stage as well, Legendary. Glad you can make it.
For having us. Sorry for the delay. Usually I'm really on top of these things, but of course, something really, really important just like happened. It was an emergency, so I'm just still happy I was able to join.
Yeah, for sure. Things always happen, so you can never control life, unfortunately. So glad you can make it. But Chris had a good question, and I was gonna ask something similar. So, do you have any plans to develop into a larger game with all the gamification aspects that you guys have? I mean, it seems kind of like almost like a logical next step. He says I know that you started with a AAA game in mind. Do you think you'll ever go back to those roots?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for us specifically, we started with very, very big ambitions, and I think, we kind of like building a AAA game is kind of something a lot of projects kind of go through the like dream of, right? Because they're like gamers at heart or whatever, and they see like this opportunity. But for us, reality kind of hit when it's like, okay, like we looked at just some numbers, right? Like Assassin's Creed, like spent upwards of like $40 million producing one game, right? Like no project, unless your name is fucking like Pixelmon, is really generating that much money. So for us, it's like, okay, how can we take advantage of this while still, like doing something that we believe in this DeFi element, and um, you know, I guess, like I said, just like taking advantage of like how we can really like benefit the ecosystem here and like where the opportunity lies. I think in general, there is a world where we do go back to those roots. But right now, like our focus is definitely on like this protocol and like kind of all the elements around it. But that's like a really good question.
Got it.
Legendary, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say pretty much all of that's spot on. I think that that's where we would like to um like keep the whole thing that we had originally came up with alive. But I think that what people will find once they use the platform is that there's so many ways that we're already planning to expand different functionalities, user experiences, and then also like just engagement and just activities that you'll be more than happy uh, with the platform, even beyond it not going the full length of AAA. There's tons of stuff that we do have planned already in phases that I think will really, really excite the end user.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really key point to touch up on. And some people are in way over their heads when they come up with an idea. Like they don't fully understand all the intricacies that go into creating maybe a $40 million game, for example.
Yeah.
And being able to recognize that is definitely important. And some people don't. Like, there's some projects out there that have this grand idea, but I don't know if they have like thought of a clear plan to raise multiple tens of millions of dollars to achieve that idea, or what the whole idea is. So definitely, like I said, a good thing to be aware of, and being realistic with yourself is a important skill to have, I'd say.
I think I don't think it comes from like bad intentions. Like I want to make that clear. I think a lot of it is people think that like where they don't realize how much it costs, right? That's like number one. The other thing is like people like will think, oh, this is such a bad company, like we can do it for cheaper or something. Like, well, unfortunately, like that's not really how it works. But I do think that there is a large opportunity for games to come in. I just don't think like the space is like ready for it yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And another question from Chris, he asks, what was the motivation behind Mythic X and the idea?
Oh, that's for you, Legendary, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think the number one thing here's the number one thing that I will say. Mythic X was born out of number one, just lore in general. It was capturing exactly what Rick said earlier, that we're all gamers at heart. We all have some level of fantasy, and things that we've touched. Maybe that's like Zelda, maybe that's like Pokemon for some people, maybe that's anime for a lot of people. And there's so many different levels to fantasy. I think that's what it was born out of, incessantly, telling this amazing story and bringing everybody on this journey along with us. And then it was really ideally to create a metaverse of people. And people always think metaverse, they think about a physical place, but also it's just the community in general. It's about creating this community of people where we all share our different experiences in the world of fantasy, and it's so broad that it really touches on a lot of people, where a lot of people in the community are welcome to share what they like, but then it also follows this streamlined story that was created from scratch. And then it also has to do a lot with, of course, what we're trying to do with crypto and how much time was spent studying between Rick, myself, Battle, and then also Mythic, who's not on this call, and just trying to solve a lot of the issues that we saw in this space that people either just didn't have the expertise to solve, maybe the timing wasn't right for them, or in some cases, some people just, it's about the money for them. And that was their aim. So we set out to solve all of those things and really, really started to develop a product that was going to do more than just be something that just functions like a lot of big projects have. We really started to address a lot of the issues that we saw in the ecosystem. And then, of course, gamified it so that it was also a really good experience.
Got it. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And just a side note, who is the guy that runs your Twitter? Because I saw you guys on Twitter like 5 different times before we ended up getting in an AMA. So total side note, but the thought just crossed my mind, so I had to ask.
Oh, that's Swedwin. Swedwin's amazing. He's been doing an excellent job. So yeah, that's kudos to him.
That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, Swedwin, good job with the Twitter. I mean, keep it up, man. That is not a skill that I have, so.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's I've been doing it for my own businesses in real life for some time, and yeah, with a bit of guidance from my marketing guy. Yeah, I enjoy it. It's good fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, guys, heading back over to the mechanics that hold the token at the pegged value, what I guess what mechanics are in place to hold that token at the peg value 1-to-1 with Matic? Is that you got? That's what you said, right?
Yeah. So a lot of what we're doing is all about how can we create a place where first people want to interact with the protocol, and two, incentivize them to like keep holding in a non-intrusive way. So like those two things were kind of like the core for us. The way we came up with doing that was all about let's like create the system where the user gets to choose what they want to do. This is kind of like what we were saying before, but the user gets to choose what they want to do. And then after that choice, how can we take them on quote unquote like our form of an adventure to keep them like first of all locked, and second of all wanting to like keep growing their ecosystem by like giving them rewards that only they can get access to via whether it be like specific NFTs we have lined up for our in the future of this protocol, like there's like multiple phases, or whether it's just better yields in general. So a lot of what came to mind was, okay, if we have someone that's investing in this, the difference between us and something like I don't know, like a Liberio or whatever, is we have actual plans to integrate with the rest of the ecosystem, right? I think that's like the key thing that a lot of these projects miss, is that there's a lot of people that don't want to deal with the hassle of making their own token. They don't want it like so that, and if you go on like Twitter Spaces or whatever, like there's tons of people like this. So for us, that's a huge opportunity because if people don't want to make their own token, that's something that our product was like specialized in. Like that was the design. So how can we like truly take advantage of that? Well, it has to be something like, let's use our token that is supposed to be stable and then put it into other protocols that need a burn token and that need this kind of system in general to like function. And then it for us, it was just like a simple alignment of values and like what we're looking for and then what they were looking for as well. I hope that answered your question. I definitely just went on a tangent.
um, partially answers it, I suppose. Like, is there any like outside revenue streams or outside factors that go into supporting the peg with the APY that you guys are giving out? Or
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is these burn mechanics that we're doing with the token, right? So like, we can't stress this enough. Like the burn, the way that we're burning tokens is by having users interact with the protocol, right? Like no one really does that, because for us, burn mechanics for a lot of projects are the problem, right? That's what's difficult. But for us, that's kind of like the life and blood of what makes it even work. I think that's like the biggest differential.
So I think what he's saying is that we talked about those land NFTs, right? They print a certain amount, but basically, like the protocol is also paying fees every time an adventurer wants to heal, and like a good portion of those are just getting burned, right? And so what that means is that as the AUM or as the kind of TVL goes up, eventually you're going to be burning as much and eventually more than the amount that you're printing from the nodes, because it's very, very limited, right? And you're paying fees that are getting burned. And so like there's a burn mechanic there. There's also the way that we're thinking about it is an interest rate type component. I don't know, Ryan, you want to speak on that, the myth ratio?
Yeah. So essentially, we have two tokens. There's two main tokens. There's the myth token and there's fortune. Fortune gets the only way to really generate myth is with this fortune token, and they're kind of tied together like very, very heavily. And by that I mean, if you look at like what powers myth, it's generated by more fortune. So that being said, we're going to have a specific interest rate that fluctuates dependent on how the protocol is doing, obviously decided by like the team and everyone. Like we want the community to be involved as well, but through that we'll actually be able to have a system where we can adjust those interest rates accordingly dependent on, okay, like right now we can afford to, produce more myth, or right now I don't think we can afford to produce more myth because, there's not a lot of people like staking right now. So maybe we drop the interest rate down, and that'll help us control like how much is being minted on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And we can't really, again, like I've said this a lot, we can't stress how important that is, because the fact that it's adjustable and it's not dependent on, current something like precedent set like a while ago, allows us to really remain nimble in this kind of market. But did you want to add anything to that, Battle?
No, I mean, I think we have a few different mechanisms, right? And then the bonded token is a little bit similar on the bonding side to how Tomb used to work. So we have that mechanism as well. But yeah, we were thinking about where the printing is happening here and like how to mitigate against that. And so we kind of came up with a few different systems to be able to mitigate against too much printing by either limiting it or by the burn mechanics.
yeah, and then how much what is like the APY for going on a quest, or like over the course of a year, let's say if you try to maximize the amount of returns that you can get, what would that number look like?
That's a good question. I think the difference between us and most other protocols is that ours is like fairly low. We're looking between somewhere, and have we released this information? I don't want to speak too much about it. Yep.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead and
Okay,
discuss
yeah.
it.
Okay, we're looking between upwards of like max 200 to 300%, like over the course of a year. Realistically, we think there's a lot of like bullshit in the ecosystem, and it's kind of all attributed to how high some of these APYs get. So that's kind of like, that was one of the things when we came up with the idea. That was like one of the super, super important parts to me, where it's like, okay, we can't afford to print endless amounts of tokens. And I think that really goes to like the fact that this isn't an unlimited supply of an unlimited supply bond, right? Unlimited supply node. I think no other projects really doing that, because one, it like hurts the project's upside, right? Like if they can't print an unlimited amount of nodes, like there's a big opportunity lost, right? So, but for us, that's kind of the part that doesn't make node projects sustainable. So,
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and I think having those low APYs, like, and, you know, the big number looks cool. It's a nice thing to be able to market to people, but at the end of the day, it's not sustainable.
yeah,
It's just
exactly.
not. So I like
Exactly.
that it's a very realistic number in comparison to all the other projects that we've seen.
Yeah.
Well,
which is
I
sad.
think,
Which is sad. But
yeah, but I think you are seeing investors realizing this now. You know, these stupidly high APR, daily APRs, just it's never worked. You know, show me one protocol where it's working and it's staying there, and the token price isn't just tanking. You know, I think investors are getting smarter now, and or the only investors left in DeFi are getting smarter.
Yeah, and it's really important to recognize what that APY really means, right? The 200 to 300%. Like I almost think of it in terms of almost like being a startup, right? Which is what we are. But the growth rate and the cost of capital for startups is really high, right? And so if the startup is growing really really fast, then you can justify that 200 to 300% type of rate, right? But like for the first year. Now in the future, is it sustainable for like years and years and years? No, but like is it sustainable as long as you're growing at that sort of level? Like if people around the Matic ecosystem are using the token and see value in it in terms of the partnerships and the roadmap in that sense, along with just kind of other utilities in just the gamification. Um, I'd say like it's very possible, right? Like that's a sustainable amount for the beginning, right? So that's sort of how we're thinking about it. It's a rate that we basically as a protocol are able to set, and that's something that's a little bit different from how DeFi I think did it before, where they basically once you let it out into the world, like you had no control over it, which we don't think is the right way to have a protocol work. It should be responsive to market conditions and like what's going on in the protocol, right? And so the same way that like central banks change interest rates, right? Because it just depends on, you can't really predict what's going to happen to markets and like what you need at the moment. It's kind of the same for us, right? So like it's going to be at that couple 100% to start or whatnot, but it's going to be changeable, which is kind of key so that we can kind of make sure that we're growing it in the right way, and not sort of just Ponzi mechanicking like it to get things out of control.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And I think to your point where, you know, if a startup is growing at a quick pace, 200 to 300% APY, like that's very realistic for a startup, right? You see in Olympus DAO, even they have 100,000% APY, and they were able to sustain that for months and months on end. So, I mean, that, you know, obviously that's a very high scale growth pace, but, you know, that's definitely, it's been done before. It's possible to do it again. And, you know, I guess, yeah, to your point, that's a good point where, you know, people can grow very quickly early on. But yeah.
Right. I mean, anything that's like even like 1,000+% APY, right? That's you're telling, what you're saying then is that you think you're going to grow that fast, right? Like 100,000 at that point, it's clearly not sustainable, you know, because there's no possible way that you're like to be that one protocol that's worth 100,000% or whatever. You basically have to be the next layer one chain that blows up, right? Like Solana or whatever. Then it's justified. But unless like you're that, then it's not really justified, you know. And so it's just really important to understand like what's kind of the APYs that are sustainable here. And it's really, I mean, realistically, right, outside of this crypto market, like the even private equity, which is like the highest returning thing on average, is probably like 20%, right? VC is probably like 25% type of return on average. Even early stage stuff, obviously, we have like the few companies that like 10, 100,000x or whatever, right? But that's if you average it out over the life cycle. And so the only reason that like a 200 or 300% type return works in this case is if it spreads into the ecosystem, right? which is kind of the goal of this protocol. And again, like that's going to have to change over time, just given what the expansion opportunities are, right? But at that moment where it may not be 200 or 300% anymore, but like a little lower than that, like it's also going to be a much safer protocol, you know, in terms of you've validated either that your thing has worked or not worked, and it's a safe place to park money to print fortune, right? Because I don't know, that's kind of the end goal, print fortune to be in that in Matic or whatnot, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. And I'm curious to hear your guys's, I guess, perspectives on what it has been like building in a bear market so far.
It's funny. We were contemplating when to launch, and then Terra died. Like that day. It's just it's really, really tough. Like actually, like no one really see the thing I think a lot of people miss about building in a bear market that you'll probably relate to is that when you're building in a bear market, um, you still have to pay bills, right? You still have to pay like employees. You still have to pay like like the designers for what you're doing, right? So I hate the notion that because you're building in a bear market, like it's time. I mean, it. Don't get me wrong, like it is time for you to like really hone in and kind of identify what you want to do for sure. But I think like there's a notion that it's like free or that all this stuff just like happens and that you don't have to pay for anything, which is just not the case. So it does really like it's very difficult. But I think we've done a really great job. You know, we're very very transparent with our community, bringing on people like Swedwin, who's super integral to this project and like how it all works. I think has been like one of the biggest selling points for us because otherwise, we would just be like twiddling our thumbs, just waiting around, right? But I think it's important to remain proactive. I think it's important to, adjust accordingly. That being said, you have to have some type of balance where it's like you can't just be building all day because it's not free. But I think it's fun for us. We've kind of learned and found our niche in a more practical way. But it's definitely hard at times.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's a good take. Anybody else want to take a stab?
I think it's hard to summarize it better than that. I think that's exactly everything that I was thinking of like through this entire journey. I think that was the best way I would ever sum it up.
All
I
right.
mean, I think like the bear market is what it is, right? And I think the psychology has obviously changed because uh, unlike the speculation markets with the last bull run, right? Like everyone's not putting money everywhere because so much money has been lost, right? Across crypto, across NFTs, across DeFi, and so the whole animal spirits bullishness, right, has disappeared, right? Where everyone wants to be in every project, where you see like thousands of people trying to get on whitelists and competing for it. Like there's just not the demand anymore, right? Because why would you when 80% of the projects that you invested in have either failed or whatnot? And to be honest, right, that's just normal startup world, right? But I think here in crypto land, things, especially in DeFi, have been a bit more Ponzi, so they were kind of destined to fail for anyone who kind of saw what was going on. So it makes it a little bit more challenging for, I think, projects like us, where we don't market ourselves as like going to win, but just as a startup, right? And you bet on the team, and you bet on kind of the idea and the vision of what's possible, and 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 that's sort of like where we sort of are. Like that's sort of like where we are, right? So, and I think we have to get the players that we can to basically again prove out sustainability in a roadmap, right? So I think and prove that you're a real team. That if you put money in, it's still going to be like a high risk investment because that's what it is in this space, and that's what it means to invest in a startup. But it's going to be a little bit more. Uh, it's something where it's going to be like a little bit more niche in terms of where you think you can start, where you're going to go, because obviously raising tens of millions of dollars. It's just like not a thing anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that people, at least the projects that we've seen, like 6 months ago or a year ago, they weren't prepared for a bear market. Like they didn't have revenue streams built out to be able to sustain their team to continue on building and pay those bills. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up. Like it's not easy. It's not easy sustaining the bills. But for the projects that have positioned themselves beforehand, I think there's definitely a good way, or not, maybe not a good way, but there's definitely ways to prepare for that, or like lack of volume on a token, for example, of relying on a token volume for revenue. That's not something that's as sustainable in a bear market, but yeah, preparing yourselves before that ever happens, I think, is how the successful projects have been successful. Yeah, we got just a couple questions left. Chris has another question. He's big into. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go for the question.
All right. So Chris is big into games, so he's really digging the potential of a game here. Have you thought about working with a larger team in the future to create this AAA game? So somewhere between like 10 or 50 devs working on a team on this game. Would that be possible? Maybe down the line.
I'll definitely say this. We've definitely made some really good connections in the world of gaming, mainly that being Bethesda. And then also, of course, having access to people at Pixar as well. So I would say that if we were to expand it out to a larger team and everything, of course, is there in place to make this a real reality, then yeah, I definitely can say that we already have access to some, massive studios like Bethesda and also a massive company like Pixar.
Yeah, we've focused on in the bear market, right? This is kind of the theme of what we've been saying, but in the bear market, you have a lot of different like priorities, and one of the beautiful things about the bear market, I think this kind of is one of the good things about it going into a bear market, is that the people who are left are the people that are going to stay, right? So the only people I know that I'm probably going to be talking to, like yourself included and everyone probably listening, are the people that want to be here and the people that aren't necessarily here just to make a quick buck or whatever, right? Like if you're here, it means that um you see the vision, you understand what crypto is, you like can see it becoming something more later on. I think a lot of people like earlier on, like I'm sure all of us will be able to like attest to this. A lot of people just have no idea what crypto is still, or they like don't understand what the vision means, or they don't see how this is going to like create value in the future, right? I think in the bear market, like all you have are people that see like that, and I think that's really really important because when you're working with these people on a daily basis, like these are the people who are going to be here for the next bull run. So when you have those connections, that's where the value comes from. So we've been really diligent in connecting with people and making those connections. Legendary has done a great job of like getting us like the group in front of like really really promising people and promising projects as a whole. So yeah, I think in general that's the main value driver for the bear market.
Yeah, that's definitely where we have spent a lot of our time, is building up those connections and those people that we really want to work with, and we're able to spend that time to be able to almost like handpick who we want to work with, and it's been super super valuable for us. And I'm curious, you guys mentioned having connections with Bethesda and Pixar. Are those companies showing interest in the Web3 space? Like, do they want to build games or movies, or whatever the case may be with blockchain technology?
A lot of the connections we've made are people either at those companies or people like frankly wanting to leave them to move into Web3, which is a lot of people nowadays, because they see the vision, they see where this is all headed. Not necessarily like the companies themselves, though we have had discussions with those types of things. I think, one of the main things is that a lot of people don't realize when you're talking about building a game or building really anything, um, it's not easy, and it's frankly like quite hard to do it properly. So even if Bethesda wanted to enter, like Bethesda has to worry about building a good game first, right? Like it's not easy to build a good game in general, let alone do all this other stuff for like crypto and whatnot. So I think they have a really hard job of just like sustaining through like normal markets as a whole. So in terms of like where the demand is for crypto, like I'm not 100% sure like where they see it going. We all personally think, we all agree that we think like Web3 gaming in general will be a big staple in the future, whether that's like in the next 2 years, 5 years, whenever, like who knows.
Yeah, definitely. I think one concept that I think is going to be big is um, being able to own assets on a video game without even realizing that you legitimately own them. So being able to integrate with Web3 technology, but not even realizing it. So being able to be a Web2 gamer without feeling like a Web3 gamer, if that makes sense, and not even realizing that you're integrating with all the technology, but it's there in the back end. I think that is going to be where we get all of those that big influx of people into Web3 because they don't
No,
they don't even realize it.
no, I think you're 100% correct. Like 1,000,000% correct. I think once you like make that aha moment for people where it's like, oh my god, like I can take this skin or whatever and into another game. Like what the fuck? Like I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I think you're 100% right that is going to be a huge value driver later on. The thing is, it's like, and frankly, this is something that all of us are dealing with, not just people in gaming, but the whole market as a whole, like the market as a whole. People like there's a very bad, I guess the right word would be, there's a very bad perception of crypto as a whole. In most, like for most people, like if you talk to your parents about crypto, like they probably think it's like some scam, right? And that's just like the reality we live in. So I think the biggest thing for us is going to be like, how can we onboard people without them realizing that they're being onboarded, quote unquote, right? And then like convincing them in a meaningful way, hey, like the only reason you're able to do that cool thing that you like is because of this. So
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't know. I'm definitely looking forward to that when I know we had a gaming company or gaming studio on a couple days ago, and they were talking about their plans to integrate um integrate Web3 technology with Web2 gamers, and them not even really having to do anything on the front end of setting that up. And I don't know, I'm really looking forward to it. I think that's what's really going to be one of a big catalyst for mass adoption just around the board, not even necessarily in gaming, but yeah, definitely something to look forward to. But I do want to be respectful of your guys' time. So if you have any last things that you want to touch up on that we maybe didn't get to, or any closing thoughts, and definitely go for it.
Yeah, I'll just say that it's really been a great journey in building this entire project in general. We've taken so much feedback, after the team really spent a lot of like time. I'm talking like months even to fully develop and flesh out and work on mechanics, hour-long meetings that lasted like into the early morning sometime. Like just the dedication by everybody on this team, I'm going to be very honest with you, has just been phenomenal to see over the last couple of months. And then also taking a lot of feedback from the community, really putting into place a lot of their ideas, really seeing what the community wanted and was asking for, and just pretty much engaging with, and then putting those things into place too. I think everybody's really going to enjoy the seasonality of this. If you ever like, I mean, when you think about GTA and how much people love GTA Online, I think that I won't go as far as saying that we're GTA, but in terms of a lot of the, things that they provide you, I think that we're looking to provide so many of those add-ons to the user experience that it's going to be something that is unlike any type of GameFi project that you've seen. I mean, even though DeFi Kingdoms was something that, we pulled the best parts from to include into this, I don't even think that DeFi Kingdoms will be as interactive as what we build when it's all said and done. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on and telling us what you guys are about. It's been a very fun last hour and 15 minutes.
What the fuck? It's been an hour?
Right? Right?
Yeah, things go by fast.
Yeah, no kidding. But
That blew my mind.
yeah, I'm looking forward to, being involved and seeing where you guys go, and maybe, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, you'll have that AAA game. That would be super, super hype.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
But yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And for everybody tuning in, I appreciate you guys taking the time, the valuable time out of your day to hear what we have to say. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Everyone, thanks so much for coming. You guys all should know where to find us. Just on Discord. We're always active. If you ever have any questions, feel free to shoot me or anyone on the team a message. We'll probably get back to you really fast, right? So yeah, just really appreciate everyone being here and supporting.
Yeah. Yeah. Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.